What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm gonna show you how I made this. Beautiful, delicious, smoky, crispy, scratch-made, amazing buckboard bacon turned into some lovely BLTs. Coming up. This is a pork butt. Pat it dry. And what I've got here is a pork butt, pretty big one, bone in, skin off, nice fat cap on top, and some beautiful marbling in there, if I do say so, which is great and should work out really well for what we're doing today. And that's because today we're taking a look at buckboard bacon. And I've heard about buckboard bacon, I've known about it for years, never made it, never had it, but it sounds like a pretty cool idea. And essentially what it is bacon made from the pork shoulder, but more specifically, the fatty portion of the pork shoulder, where that money muscle is for competition barbecue. And every time I look at a pork butt, I think about doing it, and it's been like 10 years and I've never tried it. So that's what we're gonna do today. And it kind of makes sense in theory because it's that perfect middle ground between belly bacon and back bacon, where it's got more of that presentation of Canadian bacon, like loin back bacon, but a lot more fat than a pork loin, yet not nearly as fatty as a pork belly. So I think it should be a cool option to have. And as I mentioned, we're gonna be using this half of the pork butt, which has got a lot of really nice fat striations in there. Decent fat cap, although they definitely scalped it a bit, which is unfortunate, but it'll still be good. But this is bone in, so we gotta find this blade bone right here and kind of find the very end of it. I'm gonna try and maximize how big we can make this thing. Trying to get through that little piece of cartilage right there. And we'll just go around it. And just try and get a big boneless chunk off of this thing. I suppose you could find boneless pork butt too. Make life a little bit easier. But there we go. Great marbling, decent fat cap on this side. Still get that little piece of cartilage that I tried to get through, so we can zip that on out of there, because we don't want to be eating that. But that is our piece that we're going to be turning into bacon today. As for the rest of this thing, save that for sausage making, or I'll probably just cook it up and make some pulled pork or something out of it. It is still bone in, but we'll set this aside for something else. And taking a look at this, I'm feeling around, seeing if there's any bone fragments or anything weird like this that kind of wants to fall off. Just give it a once over, clean it up a little bit. And really, I'm not too concerned about the shape. You know, maybe if there's something really pointy, we can round that off. But we're gonna be curing this and slicing it pretty thin at the end, so pretty happy with how that is looking. Very nice. You know what, on second thought, just to make this look a little bit better, I think I am gonna tie this up, just for good measure, help the shape a little bit, although very much unnecessary. Double loop, butcher's knot, tie that off, snip any excess, make a loop, go underneath, about an inch forward, tighten that up, and repeat the process. Again, this is just gonna help give it that round shape, so it'll look a little bit more like Canadian bacon, and maybe it'll help brine it a little more evenly. And we'll do one more on the very end here. Nice truss, haven't done this in a while. And we'll tie this end off, snip off the excess, and there we go. Quick and easy, but now it's gonna have a little bit better shape for us. But to turn this into bacon, we need to make ourselves a brine. Ingredients for our brine include 2 quarts of water, some kosher salt, some white sugar, and some pink salt #1, because this is more of a cure than a brine. And the main difference between a cure and a brine is just the ratio of salt. You know, this is way more concentrated than anything I'd ever throw a chicken into or something like that. But it should work out really well for making some bacon. And there are several different ways you can go about curing bacon. You can do a true dry cure, where you leave it uncovered in the fridge for a couple of weeks. You can do a dry cure in a bag, which will collect the moisture and kind of be a combination of a dry cure and a wet cure. Or you could do what we're doing today, which is a full wet brine. I did this in my Canadian bacon video years back, and it worked out really well. And it's also a very similar brine to the pastrami brine that I use all the time on this channel, and it hasn't steered me wrong yet. But at this point, we're gonna bring this up to a simmer, just to make sure everything is nicely dissolved. And you could add other aromatics at this point if you like. If this was pastrami, I'd be throwing mustard seeds and juniper berries and cloves and stuff in there. But because I've never made buckboard bacon before, I wanna keep it pretty simple, just so we can experience the full buckboard experience. So, I'm gonna let this come up to a simmer, or just keep whisking it until everything is nicely dissolved. And once all the salts and sugars are melted, we can pour this into our intended brining vessel. It's crazy how clear that is. You know, a lot of times I'll use brown sugar or maple syrup, or throw some bourbon in there, or at least some spices. But again, we're keeping it simple today. But to cool that off and add the rest of our liquid, we're going in with some ice water to make 1 gallon of brine total. And all the salts and sugars and measurements are calculated to that 1 gallon of water, not necessarily to the meat itself. So as long as this is enough brine to submerge your meat, you're good to go. And now that our brine is cooled down, we're gonna add our absolutely beautiful piece of pork in there. I mean, look at all the fat on that. It's gonna be real good. Beautiful marbling on that. So into the brine we go. Look at him in there in his little bath. Probably gonna have to put a plate or something on top to submerge that fully. But at this point, lid goes on, and into the fridge this goes for about a week. Now, you could probably get away with about 48 hours on this to get even even curing all the way throughout, but because this is bacon, not necessarily a pastrami or something, I really want to have that cured texture, not only just the color and flavor. So by letting this go for a long time, I think it's really going to help firm that meat up a little bit and give it that nice pink hue and that charcuterie taste that we're after when it comes to making things like bacon. So into the fridge this goes. We'll probably come in every day or so, kind of move it around, mix it around, make sure everything is brining and curing evenly. But other than that, I will see y'all in 7 days. This video is brought to you by Tinkovas. Tinkovas is a local Austin-based company specializing in incredibly high-quality cowboy boots or ranch boots or work boots, just really good boots. And in every pair of Tinkovas boots, you can expect extremely high quality and a timeless Western style. These boots are handmade in over 200 individual steps and are always made from premium cowhide or other exotic leathers. And the best part is, they're comfortable on day one. Tinkovas is known for their broken-in leathers, meaning you don't have to walk around in really stiff boots for the first couple of weeks. And I gotta tell you, as soon as I tried these on, I was hooked. I've never put on a boot that felt that comfortable right out of the gate. They're super durable and stylish. What's not to like? Also, their storefront is awesome. I went in there the other day and it was like a party in there. I walk in and there's a bunch of people checking out their stuff, and right off the bat I get offered a beer, which is awesome. Makes shopping a lot more fun. Gotta love it when a store offers complimentary beverages. And they also do free boot shines there. All of the staff was incredibly friendly and knowledgeable and helped me pick out these new boots, which is great because sometimes it's hard to find shoes in my size, but they had them. And they also offer complimentary branding and leather stamping, so I may have to go back and get the old Chud logo on these. And over the years in the barbecue world, I have found myself on several ranches, whether I'm doing a quail hunt or a bison harvest or something like that. And every time I show up in tennis shoes, I just feel like I don't quite belong. So a good pair of cowboy boots or ranch boots is something I've been after for a long time, and I'm super pumped to have these. They are super comfy, super durable, and they look great. Gotta love it when utility, style, and comfort all come in the same package, am I right? And I really like these ones in particular because they get really narrow right at the top, which means getting your pants over them is super easy as well. And just look how good these look. I mean, come on. I like these a lot. And from here on out, whether I'm going on a hunt or just going out for a really nice fancy dinner, these are definitely the footwear of choice. So if you want to pick up your favorite new pair of boots, click my link in the description box of this video or scan the QR code on screen now to go check out Tinkovas. Again, link in description or scan the QR code on screen now to pick yourself up some great boots. 8 days later. Out of the fridge this comes, and it is looking very nice. And what I did is I let this soak in the brine for the last 7 days, and then last night on day 7, I pulled it out of the brine, gave it a quick rinse off, popped it on this wire rack, and let it sit in the fridge uncovered. And that's because it was really wet, and I wanted it to dry out a little bit and form a bit of a pellicle on the outside, which will help in the smoking process. But it's looking really nice. Color definitely changed a little bit, and it feels really heavy, which means all that brine did penetrate evenly throughout this thing, holding its shape very well and feeling very firm to the touch. But to turn this from cured pork into bacon, we gotta smoke it. So let's go ahead and fire up the pit. I swear next time I'm making boot snake bacon. And on the pit we go. Got the old offset here fired up. We got a small bit of charcoal, as well as 1 log of post oak wood. And we're gonna aim to keep this pit around 150 degrees for the next few hours to allow this thing to get nice and smoky, build up some beautiful flavor, and slowly come up to an internal temp of 150 degrees. And here we are about 6 hours later. Honestly, the day kind of got away from me a little bit. We had a big thunderstorm roll through. But this thing is finally done and coming off the pit, looking nice and shiny, looking really good. And for this cook, I kept the pit at 150 or lower for the first 4 hours, then increased the temp up to about 250 on the pit until this came up to an internal temperature of 150 degrees, which is where it's currently at. And now I'm gonna pull it off and let it cool down. Looks really nice though. Look at the color on that. Very happy with that. But now all we gotta do is get this thing chilled down so we can slice it up and see how this bacon came out. Obviously, I'm gonna let it rest overnight, but you know, a couple hours in the fridge, or you could vac seal it and drop it to an ice bath or something like that. But I think I'm gonna wrap this up, pop it in the fridge, and we'll check back in tomorrow. Next up, let's knock out some white bread for some BLTs. Starting with some milk and some water, our yeast, and our sugar, and mix that up. Followed by some bread flour, dough conditioner, and our salt. And let that all come together. And once the shaggy dough ball has come together, in we go with our softened butter. And now we're gonna mix this on medium speed for 6 to 8 minutes. And once your dough is looking nice and smooth and pulling away from the sides of the bowl, out it comes. Absolutely beautiful dough. So into a grease bowl we go. Gonna cover this up and let this rise for the next hour to hour and 1/2. And once our dough has doubled in size, out it comes. boop, and punch all the air out. And now we're gonna roll it out to pop any gigantic bubbles. And then we're gonna do our best to roll this up into a nice tight log. Be sure to pinch that seam shut on the underside as well as on the ends. Then we're gonna grease up a loaf pan here and take our beautiful log and slide it right in there. Beautiful. Now plastic goes back on. We're gonna let this rise for probably about 30 minutes. And once looking nice and poofy and risen up a little bit, it's time to bake it off. So into a 350-degree oven this goes for probably about 30 minutes. And just like that, fresh out of the oven, we've got ourselves a beautiful looking loaf of bread. Although it did get a little bit bulbous on this side, but I'm okay with it. So now we're gonna pop it out. Ooh, beautiful color all the way around. Very happy about that. But I'm gonna pop this on a wire rack to cool down for a little bit. And with our bread made and our bacon smoked and chilled, all we gotta do now is get that bacon sliced up and see how it came out. But I left the meat slicer down at the Chud shop, so let's head down there. And let's take a look at this bacon that has been chilled overnight. Looking good, nice and red, nice and smoky. See all the fat in there still, which is really nice. It's a little damp though, so I'm gonna go ahead and pat it dry. But before we go ahead and throw this on the old meat slicer, I'm gonna get all these strings off of there because they have done their job. But now on the old meat slicer we go. And taking a look, that is our first slice of some buckboard bacon. Looking really nice. Looks like it's cured all the way through, going pretty thin on that. And a good amount of fat content, which means it should be really tasty. I just cut it in half to fit on the meat slicer a little bit easier, and that's another good shot of the inside. And yeah, that looks really good. Pretty pumped about that, although it's probably gonna shrink up and be pretty tiny by the time it's all cooked. But I'm gonna keep slicing. Oh, so beautiful. Looks like straight up charcuterie. I will say the nice part about buckboard bacon as opposed to belly bacon is that it actually fits on the meat slicer because of its size, you know? Bellies can be a little bit too long, so you end up with really short pieces of bacon. But seeing how this is more, you know, like pork loin size, makes slicing it up real easy. And just like that, all sliced up and looking beautiful. And it looked like a small chunk of meat at first, but that is a lot of bacon. So pretty happy with that. Loving the marbling on that, good amount of fat content. And this is shaping up to be pretty tasty. And one last thing we gotta make before we assemble some BLTs is a quick homemade mayonnaise. So into the blender, 1 egg, boop, 1 clove of garlic, about a tablespoon of some Dijon mustard. Might go a little bit heavier. Kind of want the Dijon to have a little bit more flavor, as well as some lemon juice. And get that blended up. Oh God, that's why they make lids. I'm also gonna go in with a small splash of water just to help loosen this up a little bit. And because I'm in Texas, gotta go some Ozarka. Just a little bit. And to make this taste a little bit more like summer, I'm gonna go in with a couple of basil leaves. Why not? And then with this thing running, I'm gonna go in with some neutral oil. This is avocado oil, but canola or vegetable or anything you got will work out just fine. Just little by little, let that emulsify right on in. Also, nice pinch of salt. And just like that, we've got ourselves some beautiful homemade mayonnaise. And it's green. Beautiful stuff, nice and thick, and it'll thicken up even more as it chills down, but wing, looking good. All right, let's cook some bacon. And in we go. Ooh. And now we will find out how much shrinkage is actually gonna occur. It smells like Canadian bacon already. It's starting to get wavy. Looks like bacon. Smells like bacon. Looking good to me. And just like that, after cooking an aggressive amount of bacon, we have finally made buckboard bacon. I gotta say, it looks pretty good. Nice and crispy. Got some rendered fat in there. Definitely meatier than pork belly bacon, yet fattier than Canadian. Cooked up, very similar to any other type of bacon though. And I'll let you guys fight in the comment section about what bacon is superior, crispy versus floppy, thick cut versus thin. Let us know your thoughts. But pretty tiny, but should stack up and make a great BLT. Speaking of which, let's see how this bread came out. Ooh, looks good to me. Smells good. Gotta love a classic homemade white bread. It is picture perfect. Maybe not so much that angle. Ooh. To build our BLTs, we've got some lovely homemade white bread, butter toasted on one side, Of course, we're gonna go on with some of our lovely homemade mayonnaise. Don't be shy, folks. Both sides. Followed by our lettuce. I went with some butterleaf lettuce today, although usually I'm a romaine guy. And that lettuce should protect the bread from getting too soggy. From the tomatoes, I got this big heirloom tomato slab going down, and I got some regular beef steaks as well, but use whatever is fresh, and now it's a great time of year to do that. And then we're gonna go down with a bunch of our little bacons here. Kind of nice that they're small, you know, really be able to match the same size of the sandwich. And we'll do one more right in the middle. Oh, beautiful. And that's it, super simple sandwich. Lid goes on. And there it is, a buckboard bacon, BLT. Pretty happy about that. And there we have it, folks. After like a week and a half of work, we've got some lovely buckboard bacon, crisped up nicely, turned into a lovely BLT. Let's see how it came out. We'll start out with just some of the bacon by itself. Again, looking nice and crispy, good fat render on there. But how does it taste? It tastes just like bacon. Perfectly salty, nice and cured. It's honestly right between belly bacon and back bacon, where it is a bit leaner than pork belly, but not nearly as lean as a pork loin. So kind of a good middle ground, you know? If you're trying to watch your fat intake or something like that, or maybe if you can't find belly in your neck of the woods, pork butt makes for a pretty good bacon. That's really good. The only thing I'm not really liking is I think I over smoked it a little bit because it's quite smoky, but I am sensitive to dirty smoke sometimes, so maybe I'll use a pellet tube next time, but really, not bad at all. Bones.
Yeah.
Would you like to try some buckboard bacon and a lovely homemade BLT?
Yeah, I've been very curious about this. You've been talking about it, and I had no idea what it was.
Well, you talk about it a lot when it takes like a week and a half to make.
It tastes like bacon.
It's like bacon, right?
Yeah.
It's not as noticeably different as I was expecting.
Yeah, not at all. Definitely not over smoked.
Really?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Maybe I was just looking for it.
Yeah.
I get a little bit of bitterness on the back end.
Just on the back end, but
Yeah.
I mean, it is sweet like pork. So
Yeah.
kind of covers it up.
Salt level?
It's good. I was worried it would be over salted.
Yeah, I know you were. Yeah, I did the wet brine method for this one. It was incredibly easy. Stacks up great in a sandwich too, which is kind of nice. You know, we're not gonna have the whole strips pulling out situation.
Yeah.
I love a good BLT.
I forgot you put stuff in that mayo. Very nice. I really like that.
Yeah, just a little subtleness from the basil and the garlic really complements the fresh tomato quite nicely. Because a BLT you can't really screw around with. It's a BLT. You can't be putting cheese on this.
Yeah, you have to put mayo.
You could get avocado, but that's a blat. That's a different thing. So the only way to really introduce some creativity into a BLT is kind of tweak the mayo a little bit, or tweak the bacon a little bit. Freshly baked bread, never hurt either.
This is the perfect BLT.
Stop.
There could be more bacon, actually. Look at this.
Yeah, I know. Well, once I crunch it down, it kind of looks a little less intimidating than when I was stacking it on there. But that's why I made a bunch of bacon. You can always add more.
It's very thin sliced.
Nothing beats a BLT in the summertime. Tell you what, it's better with extra bacon. Who knew? Like most things in life.
Every time I eat a BLT, I think how great it would be to have a tomato garden. That's the only time.
Yeah. We've been talking about getting a garden going for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be the year we actually do it.
It's just too hot in Texas, and we don't have any shade in the back. So.
Yeah. All we need, some peppers and some tomatoes, and then we need to mill some bread, and we'll do the ultimate. We'll raise a pig. The next year's BLT video. Maximum effort.
I don't want to do a pig slaughter.
Okay.
I'm not into it.
Yep, that's really good. The acidity from that tomato and the mayo too just works. And with this very last bite of buckboard bacon, I think it's time for the official taste test. Ooh. All right, y'all, and that is it. That is how to make some absolutely fantastic buckboard bacon turned into some amazing homemade BLTs. I highly recommend giving this one a try, you know? If you're into curing and smoking your own meats, this is a really fun project. Pork butts are pretty cheap, which is nice. And again, if you're someone that's looking for something a little bit leaner than belly bacon, but a little bit more fatty than ham, then this is a perfect option for you, and definitely something I'll be making again in the future, because it was really tasty. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button, that YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Team Chud members. Thank you for supporting this channel and allowing me to keep making all these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace!